My family saw me as a ghost in their world, a secretary fetching coffee, answering phones, bound for a life of quiet obscurity. To them, I was Evelyn Sawyer, the daughter who'd never rival her brother's brilliance. Their laughter stung at every reunion, their pity sharper than their words. She's happy with so little. They didn't see the ambition burning within me, the resolve forged in their dismissal. I played their game, wore their label, and hid my truth. For years, I carried a secret so big it would one day unravel everything they thought they knew about me. What they couldn't see was my empire, built in the shadows of their scorn. I wasn't just a secretary, I was the architect of Horizon Innovations, a $400 million tech powerhouse reshaping real estate. While they mocked my small job, I led boardrooms, outwitted rivals, and signed multi-million-dollar deals. My name, Evelyn Sawyer, echoed in Silicon Valley, not their Connecticut dining room. Each slight, each smirk, fueled my fire. I wasn't the girl they dismissed, I was a CEO, cloaked in their underestimation, waiting for the moment to reveal a truth that would shake their world apart. Then, their world collapsed. Sawyer Properties, my family's legacy, teetered on bankruptcy, undone by their own mistakes. Desperate, they sought salvation from Aurora Capital, unaware it was my company. The girl they ridiculed now held their fate in her signature. In one meeting, I'd step from the shadows, revealing I was the CEO they needed. Their shock would be raw, their regret heavy. But this wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about confronting the cost of my secret. Triumph came with a price, one I hadn't foreseen, and it changed us all forever. This is my story of rising from silence to strength, of turning doubt into a $400 million legacy. If you've ever been underestimated by those who should see your worth, this will hit home. Stay with me to witness how I faced a family that never believed in me, and what it took to claim my truth. Share your own battles in the comments. Have you defied the odds? Hit subscribe to follow this journey of resilience. Let's explore what it means to rise above, to prove not just to others, but to yourself, that you are enough. I grew up in a world of polished facades, where wealth masked a deeper emptiness. Our 6-bedroom colonial home in Connecticut stood like a monument to success, its white columns gleaming under the New England sun. Inside, though, warmth was scarce. My parents, Margaret and Theodore Sawyer, had built Sawyer Properties, a real estate empire that once thrived but was faltering by the time I was a teenager. They poured their lives into it, every dinner a strategy session, every conversation a balance sheet. I watched from the edges, a quiet observer in a house that valued ambition over affection. My father, Theodore, was a man of unyielding focus, his eyes always on the next deal, his voice carrying the weight of authority. My mother, Margaret, once a rising star in her own right, had traded her dreams to support him, her laughter rare and fleeting. They raised us to uphold the Sawyer name, a legacy that felt like a chain around my heart. I was the youngest, the only girl, born into a family where expectations were clear. My brothers would inherit the empire, and I was to be something else, something less. The dining room, with its heavy oak table and crystal chandelier, was where I learned my place. It was where my father's gaze skipped over me, where my mother's gentle suggestions steered me toward a life of refinement, not risk. The house was grand, but it was cold, its walls echoing with the unspoken rule that business was not for me. I was Evelyn Sawyer, the afterthought, destined to live in the shadow of my family's ambitions, my own dreams buried beneath their certainty that I could never rise to their level. My 3 brothers, Jasper, Gideon, and Thane, were the chosen ones, groomed from childhood to carry the Sawyer legacy. Jasper, the eldest, was the strategist, his mind sharp with plans to expand the company. Gideon, 4 years older, had a silver tongue, charming clients with ease. Thane, closest to me in age, was the dreamer, his charisma masking a lack of discipline. They filled the dining room with their ideas, their voices loud, their confidence unshakable. I sat at the table's edge, my thoughts ignored, my presence barely acknowledged. When I dared to speak, offering a suggestion about market trends or cost efficiencies, their laughter cut like glass. "Sweet idea, Evie," Jasper would say, his smirk dismissing me. Gideon would add, "Business isn't your thing, leave it to us." Thane, kinder but no less patronizing, might offer a smile, "Stick to something simpler." My parents didn't correct them. My father's silence was agreement, my mother's soft, "There are other ways to shine, dear," was a gentle cage. Aunt Beatrice, my father's sister, was the cruelest, her voice dripping with condescension, "A lady doesn't meddle in profits, Evelyn. Focus on grace, not boardrooms." Each dismissal built a wall around my ambitions, each word a reminder that I was less in their eyes. I absorbed their doubts, let them settle in my bones, but they didn't break me. Instead, they fueled a quiet fire, a resolve to prove I was more than their limited vision of me. I learned to listen, to watch, to store every slight in my heart, not as defeat but as motivation. They saw a girl who didn't belong in their world. I saw a future they couldn't imagine, one where I'd rewrite the rules they thought defined me. In that cold house, one person saw me, my grandmother, Clara. She was a widow who'd once balanced the books for my grandfather's business, her sharp mind hidden behind a quiet smile. Clara saw the spark in me that others missed, the hunger behind my silence. Late at night, when the house slept, she'd find me reading business books under the covers, my flashlight casting shadows on the walls. "Still waters run deep, Evie," she'd whisper, slipping me a worn copy of The Art of the Deal or Forbes. "They don't see it yet, but you're a force." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the weight of my family's dismissal. When I was 14, she caught me sketching a business plan, my clumsy attempt to save Sawyer Properties' declining profits. Instead of scolding, she sat beside me, her eyes bright with pride. "You've got a gift," she said. "Don't let their doubts dim it." Clara told me stories of her own battles, of men who underestimated her, of numbers she mastered in secret. She gave me her old accounting ledgers, their pages yellowed but alive with her strength. "Keep learning," she urged, "and one day, they'll see what I see." Her belief was a shield against the laughter, a spark that kept my dreams alive. Clara was my secret ally, the only one who didn't see my gender as a limit. She taught me to move with purpose, to let their blindness be my advantage. When she passed, she left me more than her diamond earrings, she left me her courage, her conviction that I could build something undeniable. Clara's voice stayed with me, a whisper in my heart, pushing me to rise above the family that tried to keep me small. At 12, I overheard my father's words, sharp as a blade, "Business is for men, Evelyn should stick to charm school." I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding, my fists clenched. That moment carved a promise into my soul, I would prove him wrong. I wasn't just the girl they dismissed, I was a mind they couldn't see, a will they couldn't break. Each night, I pored over books, studying markets, memorizing strategies, my bedroom a secret war room. Their laughter at dinner, their pitying glances, only sharpened my resolve. I wasn't chasing their approval anymore, I was chasing something bigger. Aunt Beatrice's barbs, focus on finding a husband, landed like stones, but I turned them into fuel. My brother's smirks, my parents' indifference, they thought they knew my limits, but I was already beyond them. I started small, analyzing Sawyer Properties reports, seeing flaws they missed, solutions they ignored. At 14, I wrote my first business plan, crude but clear, my handwriting shaky with hope. I hid it under my mattress, knowing they'd laugh if they saw it. Clara's encouragement echoed in my mind, deep rivers move with purpose. I vowed to build something so undeniable they'd have to see me. I wasn't just Evelyn, the afterthought, I was a force waiting to emerge. Every slight, every "not for you," built a fire in my chest, a quiet rage that drove me forward. I didn't need their belief, I needed my own. By 15, I knew my path, I'd rise in secret, let their doubts blind them until the day I stood tall, my success a mirror they couldn't ignore. That girl, scribbling plans in the dark, wasn't dreaming, she was planning. And one day, they'd beg for the help of the sister they never truly knew. At 15, I believed I could change their minds. For weeks, I pored over Sawyer Properties financials, my bedroom a fortress of spreadsheets and scribbled notes. I saw their mistakes, missed market shifts, bloated costs, and crafted a plan to save the company. My hands shook as I stood at the dining room table, clutching my notebook, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. I spoke of new marketing strategies, leaner operations, a path to profit. I thought they'd see me, really see me, not just Evelyn, the girl they overlooked. I was wrong. My brother Jasper's smirk broke the silence, his laughter sharp and cold. "Cute, Evie," he said, leaning back, "but this isn't a school project." Gideon, always quick to follow, chuckled, "Stick to prom planning, sis. Business isn't your game." Thane, the kindest, offered a pitying smile, "Nice try, but it's not realistic." My father, Theodore, cleared his throat, his eyes avoiding mine. "Business is more complicated than you understand," he said, his tone final, a door slamming shut. My mother, Margaret, touched my arm gently. "You don't need to worry about this, dear." Their words stung, each one a pebble in a growing pile of doubt. I stood there, exposed, my plan dismissed as a child's fantasy. The room felt smaller, their laughter louder, my hope crumbling under the weight of their certainty that I didn't belong. I fought the tears burning my eyes, refusing to let them see me break. I gathered my papers, my heart heavy but not defeated. That moment wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Their rejection didn't crush my dreams, it sharpened them, forging a resolve to build something they couldn't ignore. The laughter lingered, a wound that wouldn't close. My father's dismissal echoed in my mind, "Business is too complex for you." It wasn't cruel, but it was absolute, a verdict on my worth. My mother's soft words, "There are other ways to shine," felt like a consolation prize, steering me toward a life of decorum, not ambition. Aunt Beatrice delivered the final blow, her voice honeyed with scorn, "Evelyn, a lady doesn't meddle in boardrooms. Focus on finding a husband who can provide." Their chuckles filled the room, a chorus of condescension that drowned out my voice. My brother's smirks, Jasper's especially, burned into me, their amusement a wall I couldn't climb. They didn't see my plan's logic, the hours I'd spent, the fire in my heart. To them, I was a girl playing at something too big, too serious. Each word, each glance, built a cage around my dreams, their doubt a weight I carried in silence. But beneath the hurt, a spark grew. I wouldn't beg for their belief, I'd earn it. Their dismissal wasn't my defeat, it was my fuel, a promise to myself that one day, they'd face the truth of who I could become. I fled to my room, the laughter still ringing in my ears, my notebook clutched like a lifeline. Tears fell, hot and silent, as I sank onto my bed, the weight of their rejection pressing down. Then came a soft knock, Clara, my grandmother, her presence a quiet haven in the storm. She didn't speak at first, just sat beside me, her hand warm on mine. "They don't see you yet," she said, her voice low, steady. "But they will." Clara, who'd balanced books for my grandfather's business in secret, knew what it was to be unseen. She took my notebook, her eyes scanning my plan with a pride that made my chest ache. "This is good, Evie," she said. "You've got a mind they can't fathom." She reached into her pocket, pulling out a single diamond earring, its sparkle catching the dim light. "Wear this when you prove them wrong," she whispered, pressing it into my palm. Clara's stories poured out, of boardrooms where men dismissed her, of ledgers she mastered in the shadows. "They'll underestimate you," she said. "Let them. Deep rivers move with purpose." Her belief was a fire, rekindling mine. She gave me her old accounting ledgers, their pages a map of her resilience. "Keep going," she urged. "Build something undeniable." Clara's faith was my anchor, her words a shield against the family's doubt. She saw the CEO I'd become when I was still just a girl, crying over a plan no one valued. That night, I vowed to carry her strength, to turn my pain into power. Clara's earring wasn't just jewelry, it was a promise, a reminder that I was more than their laughter, more than their limits. College was my lifeline, a chance to step out from the shadow of my family's expectations. While my brothers strutted through Ivy League halls, I chose a state university in Massachusetts, a place where I could breathe, where the Sawyer name didn't echo. I double-majored in business and computer science, disciplines that felt like keys to a world my family couldn't gatekeep. To them, I was off, husband hunting, chasing a degree they assumed was decorative. They didn't know I was building my arsenal, sharpening my mind for a fight they couldn't see coming. My days were relentless, classes from dawn, part-time jobs to cover tuition, nights buried in textbooks and code. The campus was alive with possibility, a stark contrast to the cold Connecticut dining room where my ideas were laughed off. I thrived in lecture halls, where my questions earned nods, not smirks. My family's voice faded, replaced by professors who saw potential, classmates who challenged me. But I kept my ambition secret, telling my parents I was studying general business, a vague lie to avoid their judgment. Aunt Beatrice's letters urged me to join sororities, to find a suitable match. I ignored them, my focus razor sharp. Every late night, every exam, was a step toward proving I was more than their dismissal. I wasn't just Evelyn Sawyer, the overlooked daughter, I was a woman carving her own path, fueled by a quiet rage against their doubts. College wasn't an escape, it was a transformation. In those lecture halls and dorm rooms, I shed the girl they knew and became someone they'd never expect. My dreams grew bolder, my resolve unbreakable, each step a promise to myself that one day, they'd face the truth of who I'd become. In my sophomore year, I met Professor Diana Lawrence, a tech pioneer whose presence commanded rooms. She was everything my family wasn't, bold, unapologetic, a woman who'd shattered ceilings in Silicon Valley before teaching. I sat in her systems design class, mesmerized by her clarity, her ability to see patterns where others saw chaos. One day, I stayed late, presenting a case study on optimizing real estate workflows. She didn't just nod, she leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "You see what others miss, Evelyn," she said. "Don't let anyone dull that." Her words hit like lightning, a validation I'd never known. Diana became my mentor, guiding me beyond textbooks. She shared stories of boardrooms where men underestimated her, of algorithms she wrote to prove them wrong. "The world will try to box you in," she warned. "Break the box." She pushed me to think bigger, to question everything, to trust my instincts. I spent hours in her office, dissecting business models, coding prototypes, learning to blend strategy with technology. Diana saw the fire my family ignored, the mind they dismissed. She gave me books, biographies of innovators, technical manuals, each one a tool to build my future. My family thought I was fetching coffee for professors, I was forging a vision. Diana's belief was a shield against their doubts, her challenge a call to rise. She didn't just teach me, she shaped me, showing me a world where a woman could lead, innovate, dominate. I carried her lessons like armor, each one strengthening my resolve. With Diana's guidance, I wasn't just surviving college, I was preparing for a revolution. She saw the CEO in me before I did, and her faith became the foundation of everything I'd build, a quiet promise to make her proud. By my junior year, I was hungry for real-world experience, determined to test my skills beyond the classroom. I landed internships at tech firms in Boston, starting with a small startup, then a mid-sized company disrupting real estate software. To my family, I was an assistant, fetching files, answering phones, a role they could stomach. In truth, I was in strategy meetings, analyzing data, proposing solutions that turned heads. My first summer, I streamlined a client onboarding process, saving the startup thousands. My manager, stunned, asked, "Where'd you learn this?" I smiled, hiding the nights spent studying, the fire driving me. At the next firm, I pitched a compliance tracking feature, drawing on Sawyer Properties' struggles I'd overheard at family dinners. The team adopted it, and I watched my idea come alive, a quiet thrill no one at home would ever know. I excelled, earning praise from executives who didn't care about my last name or gender. But I kept my success secret, nodding at Thanksgiving when Thane teased, "Still typing memos, Evie?" Their laughter didn't sting anymore, it fueled me. Each internship built my confidence, my skills, my vision. I learned to navigate corporate politics, to code under pressure, to lead without a title. My double life was exhausting, but it was mine, a world where I wasn't the overlooked sister but a force earning respect. I carried Clara's earring in my pocket, a reminder of her faith, and Diana's words in my heart, "Break the box." These internships weren't just jobs, they were stepping stones to an empire I was already dreaming of. I wasn't just proving myself to my bosses, I was proving to myself that I could outgrow my family's limits, that I was ready to build something they couldn't imagine. At 19, I took a leap that changed everything. Overhearing my father complain about Sawyer Properties' inefficiencies, missed deadlines, regulatory fines, I saw a problem I could solve. Alone in my dorm, fueled by coffee and ambition, I coded my first app, a property management tool to streamline compliance and operations. It was rough, built in stolen hours between classes and shifts, but it worked. I'd sit cross-legged on my bed, laptop glowing, watching my code run smoothly, a quiet victory no one knew. This wasn't just a project, it was a seed, a vision of what I could create. I didn't tell my family. They'd laughed at my plans before, this was mine to protect. I refined it, drawing on my internships, my classes, Diana's lessons. The app tracked leases, flagged violations, automated reports, solutions my father needed but would never accept from me. I tested it with dummy data, imagining it saving companies like his. Each bug I fixed, each feature I added, felt like a step toward freedom. I named it Horizon, a nod to the future I saw, a world beyond their doubts. But I hid it, saving the code on a private drive, knowing my brothers would mock it, my parents dismiss it. Clara's voice echoed, "Deep rivers move with purpose." This app was my river, flowing quietly, gathering strength. I wasn't ready to share it, but I knew it was the start of something bigger. That dorm room, with its creaky desk and flickering lamp, was where I became more than Evelyn, the secretary they imagined. I was a creator, a dreamer, a woman building the foundation of an empire. One day, they'd see what I'd started in secret, and they'd realize I'd been their answer all along. At 22, I stepped into the world of tech forward, a rising star in Silicon Valley's real estate tech scene. To my family, I was just an assistant, fetching coffee, typing memos, a role they could dismiss. But I wasn't answering phones, I was in strategy sessions, analyzing workflows, spotting cracks in an industry ripe for change. Real estate was a mess of inefficiencies, missed compliance deadlines, tangled lease agreements, data lost in paper trails. I saw it all, not as chaos, but as opportunity. My internships had taught me to think like a problem solver, my college nights coding had given me the tools. I remembered my father's complaints about Sawyer Properties, the same issues plaguing his firm, fines for missed regulations, clients slipping through cracks. I'd offered solutions at 15, only to be laughed off. Now, I saw a chance to build something bigger, something that could fix what he couldn't. I started sketching ideas, late nights at my desk, my prototype app from college as a blueprint. This wasn't just about saving one company, it was about revolutionizing an industry. I dove into research, studying competitors, regulatory frameworks, user pain points. The gap was clear, no platform seamlessly tied compliance, property management, and analytics into one. I pitched a prototype at Tech Forward, a sleek tool to automate compliance tracking. My boss nodded, impressed, but redirected it to another team. That rejection stung, but it clarified my path. I didn't need their approval, I needed to build it myself. My family's laughter echoed in my mind, their doubts a shadow I'd outgrown. I wasn't Evelyn, the secretary they mocked, I was a visionary, seeing what they couldn't. This gap wasn't just a market flaw, it was my calling. I named my vision Horizon Innovations, a promise of a new dawn. In those quiet hours, alone with my ambition, I laid the foundation for an empire, one they'd never see coming. The spark for Horizon came alive at a San Francisco tech conference, where I wandered among coders and dreamers, my badge reading Evelyn Sawyer, Tech Forward. I was there to learn, to absorb, but fate had other plans. In a crowded breakout session on scalable platforms, I heard a voice, sharp, fearless, cutting through the jargon. Lila Reed, a coder from Oakland, was challenging a panelist's lazy assumptions about user interfaces. Her words were electric, her confidence unshakable. I caught her afterward, nervous but driven, and we talked over lukewarm coffee. Lila was everything I wasn't, bold where I was reserved, outspoken where I was strategic. But we shared a hunger, a frustration with the industry's sluggish pace. She'd built apps for startups, only to see her work buried under bad management. I shared my vision for Horizon, a platform to streamline real estate chaos. Her eyes lit up. "That's not just an app," she said. "That's a game changer." We met again, sketching ideas on napkins, our voices rising with excitement. Lila's coding genius matched my strategic mind, she saw the technical backbone where I saw the market fit. We were a perfect balance, two women tired of being sidelined, ready to build something undeniable. Late nights followed, Lila coding prototypes while I mapped business models. We argued, laughed, pushed each other harder. My family thought I was networking at the conference, still their secretary. They didn't know I'd found a partner, a co-founder who saw what they never could. Lila didn't care about my last name or their doubts, she saw my vision, my fire. Together, we named our dream Horizon Innovations, a nod to the limitless future we'd create. Clara's earring weighed heavy in my pocket, her voice urging me on, deep rivers move with purpose. Lila and I weren't just building a company, we were forging a revolution, a legacy that would outshine the family that tried to keep me small. With Horizon's prototype ready, Lila and I faced the real test, funding. We needed capital to scale, to turn our vision into reality. Armed with a pitch deck and relentless drive, we entered the lion's den of venture capital. The first meeting set the tone, a room of gray-suited men, their smiles thin, their questions sharp. Two women in their 20s, one said, eyebrows raised. "This isn't a hobby, ladies." Their dismissal echoed my family's laughter, but I'd learned to let it fuel me. We pitched again and again, 30 rejections piling up like stones. Too risky, they'd say. Real estate techs crowded. One investor leaned back, smirking, "Stick to something simpler, maybe consumer apps." Lila's jaw tightened, but we kept going, refining our pitch, our numbers airtight. The sexism was blatant, men half our skill got funding while we faced skepticism. I remembered Diana Lawrence's words, "Break the box." We wouldn't beg, we'd prove them wrong. Late nights blurred, Lila tweaking code, me crunching market data. We hit roadblock after roadblock, our savings dwindling, doubt creeping in. But we leaned on each other, Lila's defiance sparking my resolve. Then came Samuel Grant, a retired exec at a small VC firm. He listened, his eyes sharp, not with judgment but curiosity. We pitched Horizon's potential, $10 billion in untapped market, a platform to cut compliance costs by 30%. He didn't interrupt, didn't smirk. "You've got something here," he said, offering $300,000. It wasn't much, but it was enough. That first check felt like vindication, a crack in the wall of doubt. The investors who'd laughed didn't know they'd missed a revolution. My family's voices faded, Jasper's smirks, Beatrice's barbs. I wasn't their secretary, I was a founder, building an empire. Samuel's faith echoed Clara's, a reminder to keep moving. Lila and I toasted with cheap coffee, our eyes on the horizon. Those struggles didn't break us, they forged us, ready to prove the world wrong, one deal at a time. While Horizon took shape, I kept my family in the dark, wearing their version of me like a mask. At Thanksgiving, I sat at their table, nodding as Aunt Beatrice taunted, "Still fetching coffee, dear?" Her smile was venom, my brother's chuckles a familiar sting. Jasper asked about my little job, his tone dripping with pity. I forced a smile, said, "It's fine," my voice steady despite the lie. They saw Evelyn, the secretary, not the woman signing client contracts in San Francisco. Each jab, each smirk, was a reminder of why I hid my truth. I wasn't ready to face their disbelief, their inevitable attempts to claim my success. I endured their condescension, letting it sharpen my resolve. Back in my apartment, I'd stare at Clara's earring, it sparkle a promise I'd kept. Horizon's first client deal closed that week, a $50,000 contract that felt like a rebellion. My family's laughter didn't touch me there, in the quiet of my work, where I was building something undeniable. I wasn't just hiding, I was waiting, gathering strength for the day I'd step from the shadows and show them the empire I'd built without their faith. By my 26th birthday, Horizon Innovations was a force, its valuation soaring to $100 million. Lila and I had built a platform that transformed real estate, streamlining compliance and management for clients across the country. I stood in boardrooms, commanding respect from executives who saw my vision, not my gender. Contracts poured in, each signature a testament to the empire I'd crafted in secret. I bought a sleek condo in San Francisco, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing a city that felt like mine. But to my family, I was still Evelyn, the secretary, tethered to their small expectations. I kept a cheap apartment in Connecticut, a stage for their visits, its peeling paint a stark contrast to my true life. Each client win, each milestone, was a quiet rebellion against their laughter. I'd walk into Horizon's offices, my team buzzing with ideas, and feel a surge of pride no one at home could touch. Yet, the secrecy weighed heavy. Every late-night strategy session, every award I hid, was a victory I celebrated alone. My family's voices, Jasper's smirks, Beatrice's barbs, faded in those moments, replaced by Clara's whisper, "Deep rivers move with purpose." I wore her earring, a talisman of my truth, hidden beneath my hair. Horizon wasn't just a company, it was my proof, my answer to years of dismissal. I was no longer the girl they ignored, I was a leader, shaping an industry, building a legacy. But the double life was a tightrope, each step a balance between triumph and silence. I thought I could keep it forever, keep them in the dark, but the strain was growing, a crack in my armor I couldn't ignore. Success was mine, but its cost was solitude, a price I hadn't expected to pay. Back in Connecticut, I slipped into their version of me, a mask I'd perfected. At family gatherings, their taunts were relentless, each one a dagger cloaked in jest. Aunt Beatrice led the charge, her voice sharp as she leaned across the table. "Still fetching coffee, Evelyn? Don't waste your youth on that dead-end job." Her smile was a blade, her words echoing the dining room's old wounds. Jasper, ever the strategist, chimed in with a smirk, "When's your boss making you head secretary? Big promotion, right?" Gideon laughed, his charm masking cruelty. "Evie, you're too sweet for that corporate grind." Thane, softer but no less dismissive, patted my hand. "You'll find your place, sis, something easier." My parents watched, silent, their indifference louder than words. My mother's glance held pity, my father's absence of comment was its own judgment. I forced a smile, my voice steady. "Works fine," I'd say, swallowing the truth. They didn't know I'd just closed a $2 million deal, that my company was reshaping an industry. Their laughter didn't sting as it once did, it hardened me, each jab a reminder of why I hid. I nodded, played the part, let them believe I was small. But inside, I was burning, their doubts fuel for my fire. Clara's earring pressed against my skin, a secret anchor. I endured their condescension, knowing my silence was power, a shield until I was ready. They saw a secretary, not a CEO, and I let them, my resolve growing with each slight. The table felt like a battlefield, their words ammunition I'd turn against them. One day, they'd see the empire I'd built, and their laughter would choke in their throats. The double life was a thief, stealing pieces of me I hadn't noticed. The thrill of Horizon's growth, $100 million, new clients, industry buzz, came at a cost I couldn't outrun. Late nights blurred into mornings, my phone buzzing with emails, my mind racing with strategies. I was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost in my own success. After a family reunion, Beatrice's words, "You're wasting your youth," hit harder than I expected. Alone in a hotel room, I broke, tears falling as I stared at my reflection, a stranger worn thin. I'd built an empire, but who was I without the mask? I started seeing Dr. Karen, a therapist in San Francisco, her office a quiet refuge from my chaos. "Why hide your success?" she asked, her voice gentle but piercing. I faltered, my words raw, "I'm afraid they'll reject me, even now. If they can't love me as a secretary, how could they love me as a CEO?" The truth spilled out, years of carrying their doubts, of proving myself to people who didn't see me. Dr. Karen listened, her questions like keys unlocking my silence. "What's success worth if it isolates you?" she pressed. I didn't have an answer. Therapy became my mirror, showing me the toll of my secrecy. I was burning out, my body heavy, my sleep fractured. I'd lie awake, Clara's earring on my nightstand, wondering if she'd approve of this half-life. Dr. Karen pushed me to confront my fear. "You're not hiding from them, you're hiding from yourself." Her words stung, but they woke me. I wasn't just building Horizon for them, I was building it for me, for the girl who'd vowed to rise. Therapy didn't fix me, it grounded me, giving me tools to carry the weight. I learned to breathe, to pause, to let the cracks in my armor be strength, not shame. The double life was still mine, but I was learning to live it, to face the day I'd step into my truth, no matter what it cost. The ground beneath my family's empire began to crack, and they didn't see it coming. Sawyer Properties, the legacy my parents had poured their lives into, was crumbling. A risky project, spearheaded by my brother Thane, had gone disastrously wrong, millions lost, creditors circling, lawsuits looming. My father, Theodore, once unshakable, sounded hollow on the phone, his voice betraying a fear I'd never heard. My mother, Margaret, sent frantic emails, pleading for unity. Jasper and Gideon bickered over blame, their confidence shattered. The company they'd groomed my brothers to lead was on the brink of bankruptcy, a house of cards collapsing under their mismanagement. They scrambled for solutions, grasping at straws, until a lifeline appeared. Aurora Capital, a subsidiary of a tech giant, offered a $100 million deal to save them. It was their only hope, a chance to merge and survive. They didn't know Aurora was mine, a branch of Horizon Innovations, the empire I'd built in secret. For years, they'd laughed at me, called me a secretary, dismissed my dreams. Now, their survival depended on the woman they'd never seen. I read their emails, their desperate pleas for a meeting, and felt a storm inside me, anger, vindication, and something heavier, something I couldn't name. Clara's earring sat on my desk, its sparkle a reminder of her faith. I'd vowed to prove them wrong, but this was more than proof. It was a reckoning. The family that had pushed me to the edges was now begging for my help, unaware I held their fate. I wasn't ready to reveal my truth, but the moment was coming, a collision I couldn't avoid. Their crisis wasn't just a business failure, it was the end of their illusion about me. I walked into their world, not as their sister, but as someone they didn't know. The emergency meeting was set in a sterile conference room in New York, the air thick with their desperation. My family sat around the table, faces drawn, my father's jaw tight, my mother's hands trembling, my brothers shifting uneasily. They expected a savior from Aurora Capital, a faceless executive to pull them from ruin. They didn't expect me. I'd flown in from San Francisco, my charcoal suit a far cry from the sundresses they knew, Clara's earring gleaming at my ear. My heart pounded, but my steps were steady. I'd spent years hiding, playing their version of Evelyn, the secretary, the failure. Now, I stood at the head of the table, my presence a question they couldn't answer. "What are you doing here?" Jasper snapped, his confusion sharp. Gideon frowned. "This is a private meeting, Evie." Thane's eyes widened, sensing something off. My parents exchanged glances, my mother's voice soft, uncertain. "Evelyn, this isn't the place." Aunt Beatrice, ever cruel, scoffed. "Did your boss send you to take notes?" Their words, so familiar, didn't wound me anymore. I let them hang in the air, their doubt a final echo of the past. I wasn't here to plead or prove, I was here to reveal. My silence unnerved them, their whispers fading as I met their eyes, one by one. The girl they'd laughed at was gone, replaced by someone they'd never imagined. I carried Horizon's weight, $400 million of proof they couldn't dismiss. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the moment I'd waited for, the edge of a truth that would shatter their world. I took a breath, ready to step from the shadows, my voice steady, my purpose clear. I spoke, and the room fell silent. "I'm not here as your sister," I said, my voice low, unwavering. "I'm here as the CEO of Aurora Capital and Horizon Innovations, a company valued at $400 million. The words landed like a thunderclap, their faces frozen in disbelief. Jasper's smirk vanished, his eyes narrowing as if I'd spoken a foreign language. Gideon's mouth opened, no sound escaping. Thane leaned forward, shock etched in his features. My father's hands gripped the table, his knuckles white. My mother's gasp was soft, her eyes searching mine for the daughter she thought she knew. Aunt Beatrice laughed, a brittle sound. "This is a prank, Evelyn. You're a secretary." I met her gaze, unyielding. "No, Beatrice. I've never been a secretary. I built Horizon from nothing, while you laughed at me." The truth poured out, years of silence breaking. I told them of my night's coding, my deals with industry giants, my team that reshaped real estate. Aurora was my creation, their lifeline my design. They stared, grappling with a reality they'd never considered. My father's voice cracked. "You're an assistant." "You said so." I shook my head. "I said what you wanted to hear. You never asked for more." The room felt smaller, their doubt suffocating, but I stood tall. Clara's earring caught the light, her faith alive in me. This wasn't just a revelation, it was a mirror, forcing them to see their failure, not mine. They'd dismissed me, but I'd built an empire in their blind spot. The weight of their shock was heavy, but I carried it, my truth a blade cutting through their lies. They needed my signature, my company, my power. The girl they'd mocked was their savior, and they couldn't look away. The silence broke, and anger flared. Jasper's voice was sharp. "You lied to us, Evelyn. Betrayed your family." His accusation stung, but I didn't flinch. My voice trembled, not with fear but with a decade's pain. "Betrayed? I offered solutions at 15, and you laughed. I tried to help, and you shut me out." I turned to Gideon, his charm gone. "You called business my brother's game. I played it better." Thane's eyes dropped, guilt flickering. My father's face was stone, but his silence screamed regret. My mother's tears fell, her whisper barely audible. "We didn't know." I faced her, my heart raw, you didn't want to know. You saw a girl, not a mind. Beatrice scoffed, defiant, this is absurd. You're ungrateful, throwing this in our faces. I met her glare, my voice steel, I'm not throwing, I'm showing you what you missed. 10 years of laughter, of stick to charm school. I built Horizon to prove you wrong. The room crackled with their shock, their guilt, my truth. I wasn't shouting, my words were heavy, each one a weight they couldn't dodge. I laid out Aurora's offer, $100 million to save their company, with me as CEO of the merged entity. Jasper sputtered, you can't lead us. I cut him off, I already have. Clara's earring burned against my skin, her strength in my veins. This wasn't revenge, it was justice, a reckoning for the girl they'd buried. They'd needed my signature, but I needed this moment, to face the family that had tried to define me. Their anger, their regret, was theirs to carry. I stood, unbroken, the CEO they'd never seen, ready to lead them into a future they didn't deserve but I'd give. The merger was a lifeline, pulling Sawyer Properties from the edge of ruin. Aurora Capital's $100 million deal, my deal, breathed new life into their crumbling empire. I stepped in as CEO of the merged entity, a role they couldn't deny me. My father, Theodore, became chairman emeritus, his authority now ceremonial, his pride tempered by regret. Jasper, unable to face my leadership, left to start anew, his ambition humbled. Gideon adapted, his charm finding a place in our new structure. Thane, the dreamer, enrolled in an MBA, determined to grow. The company thrived under my vision, its offices buzzing with innovation, its balance sheet strong. Clients who once doubted Sawyer Properties now trusted Horizon's name. I'd saved them, not out of duty, but because I could. Clara's earring, now worn openly, gleamed as a symbol of my triumph. The family that had laughed at me leaned on my strength, their legacy preserved by the daughter they dismissed. Yet, success wasn't the revenge I'd imagined. It was heavier, laced with questions about what I'd lost to get here. The merger wasn't just a business win, it was a mirror, showing us all who we'd been and who we could become. The merger forced us to face each other, raw and unguarded. My mother, Margaret, broke the silence first, her voice trembling, I failed you, Evelyn. I didn't see you. Her tears fell, and for the first time, I saw her not as distant, but human. We talked, haltingly at first, rebuilding a bond scarred by years of misunderstanding. My father's apology was quieter, a nod across the table, his eyes carrying a weight I hadn't expected. Gideon and Thane reached out, their words clumsy but earnest, seeking a sister they'd lost. Jasper's absence ached, but I hoped time would soften him. We weren't whole, not yet, but we were trying. I founded the Clara Sawyer Foundation to mentor women entrepreneurs, a tribute to the grandmother who'd seen my spark. Its first event felt like a promise kept, young women's dreams echoing mine. Healing wasn't easy, it was messy, slow, full of old hurts surfacing. But it was real. I'd thought proving them wrong would be enough, but this fragile mending, meant more. My family wasn't perfect, but they were mine, and I was learning to forgive, to let love grow where doubt once stood. I thought revenge would taste sweet, a fire to warm the years of their laughter. But standing atop my $400 million empire, I found it hollow. Proving them wrong didn't fill the quiet nights, the solitude of my double life. Healing did. Facing my family, seeing their regret, their tentative steps toward me, that was the victory I hadn't planned. Success isn't a score to settle, it's a mirror, showing you who you are. I was Evelyn Sawyer, not their secretary, not their failure, but a woman who built Horizon from pain and purpose. Clara's earring, now a symbol of my journey, reminded me, deep rivers carve their own paths. I didn't rise to spite them, I rose to prove myself right. The Clara Sawyer Foundation became my legacy, a beacon for others to claim their dreams. To anyone underestimated, know this, your worth isn't in their eyes, but in your heart. Keep building, keep rising, not for their applause, but for the truth you carry. My story isn't about winning, it's about becoming. And in that becoming, I found a strength no one, not even my family, could take away. Have you ever been underestimated, your dreams dismissed by those closest to you? My journey from a mocked secretary to a $400 million CEO was forged in that pain. I want to hear your story. Share in the comments how you've defied doubt. If Evelyn's fight moved you, hit like to honor resilience. Subscribe to join a community chasing truth over approval. Share this video with someone who needs to hear, your worth isn't their verdict. Let's build a space where we rise together, proving ourselves right, step by step, against the odds that try to hold us back. This isn't the end of my story, it's a beginning. Next, I'll share how I turned pain into purpose with the Clara Sawyer Foundation, empowering women to claim their dreams. Don't miss it, subscribe now to follow the journey. Check out related videos on your screen to dive deeper into stories of triumph. Keep watching, keep sharing, because every story matters. Clara taught me, deep rivers carve their own paths. Let's carve ours together. Thank you for being here. Your support fuels this mission to inspire, to rise, to prove we're more than they see.